we can recognize that some people are elevated to certain positions or offices or have something important that they can share or offer. For example, I am a big fan of Doge and what Doge is doing. And I'm like, expose the rot, defund all of the condoms being sent to Hamas. I love it. Give me more of that. But just because we like someone or they are on our side does not mean that we are silent about or that we encourage or celebrate the moral decay that they are displaying in their own life.
Welcome to Undercurrents, our daily news show from Unheard's Washington Bureau. Today's guest is Katy Faust. First, over at undercurrents.tv, though, you can join the Undercurrents community where you get a special weekly newsletter from me, a private email address to contact us, and paywalled episodes of the show. Please also subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Now let's get on to the news. The sad saga of Ashley St. Clair and Elon Musk is getting uglier, unfortunately. Last Friday, exactly a week after publicly revealing Musk is the father of her 5-month-old son, St. Clair filed for sole legal custody of the boy. She also filed a paternity petition. In the filing, St. Clair says she and Musk were romantically involved starting around May of 2023 and conceived the baby in January 2024. She also claims Musk has seen their son 3 times since his birth for a total of about 3.5 hours. The filing includes a selection of messages between St. Clair and Musk, one of which appears to show Musk saying, quote, "We do have a legion of kids to make." Musk's son with St. Clair is his 13th child, and St. Clair is the 4th mother of all those children. Less than a week after St. Clair revealed the existence of their 5-month-old, Grimes, the mother of 3 of Musk's children, had asked Elon on X, quote, "Please respond about our child's medical crisis. I am sorry to do this publicly, but it is no longer acceptable to ignore this situation. This requires immediate attention. If you don't want to talk to me, can you please designate or hire someone who can do that so we can move forward on solving this? This is urgent, Elon." Just days before, Grimes had publicly commented on their son X's appearance alongside Musk and Donald Trump in an Oval Office press appearance, saying, quote, "He should not be in public like this. I did not see this. Thank you for alerting me." A New York Times investigation last fall reported, quote, "Mr. Musk has told people close to him in recent months that he envisions his children, of which there are at least 11, and 2 of their mothers occupying adjoining properties. That way, his younger children could be a part of one another's lives, and Mr. Musk could schedule time among them," end quote. Musk at the time denied that. You may remember his heartbreaking conversation with Jordan Peterson from last July, during which Musk commented on his son's conversion into transgenderism. So let's take a look.
I lost my son, essentially. They call it dead naming for a reason.
Yeah,
All right, so the reason it's called dead naming is because your son is dead. So my son Xavier is dead, killed by the woke mind virus.
That child has since slammed Musk publicly. Musk's family life is unambiguously sad. A child so angry that the feud spills into the press, multiple mothers publicly trying to get his attention. In her custody suit, St. Clair says Musk, quote, "has never asked to see our child on any other occasion. He has never communicated to me about our child without prompting. He has never asked for photos of our child or checked in after doctor's appointments." Some of St. Clair's personal messages to others about Musk have spilled onto social media in recent days. It's continuing to happen. Musk has offered his own public reaction, like, quote, "yikes" and "whoa," in replies on X to posts in which St. Clair does seem to have been previously joking, or maybe more, about getting Musk to impregnate her. Musk for years has framed his large family as part of a personal effort to address stagnating birth rates. Quote, "Population collapse is accelerating," he posted last August alongside a chart of shifting birth rates over the last decade. Musk's first baby died tragically as an infant, after which he and his then wife turned to IVF, which is how many of his children have since been born. He has used surrogates as well, reportedly. When Donald Trump, now Musk's boss, first rose to political power back in 2015 and 2016, many conservatives were deeply uncomfortable with his morally checkered family history. Ultimately, most of the right determined that Trump's personal moral failings were either irrelevant or outweighed by his moral benefits to the country. Some of this echoed the way feminists and Democrats actually grappled with Bill Clinton's infidelity and dishonesty in the late 1990s. Should Musk be seen similarly? Does Musk's family life reflect his character, positively or negatively? As the most powerful man on Earth, is his character fair game? Does it tell us anything about how he might be approaching the, quote, revolution that he's helping lead here in DC? Katy Faust is a conservative and the founder of Them Before Us. When I saw her post that said, quote, Elon Musk is a modern-day polygamist, a family structure characterized by jealousy and inequality, I knew we had to bring Katy on this show to talk through some of this. Musk's personal life is dominating headlines as he dominates the bureaucracy. So does it matter? Katy Faust, one of the most clear-thinking and brave people I know in the media, joins us now. Katy, thank you for being here.
Jashinsky, it's my pleasure. Love you, love your work, love Undercurrents. Great follow. Yeah, I'm just really happy to be chatting with you today.
Well, the feeling is so mutual, and I have to start with this tweet from a couple of days ago, but we're learning more and more, I think, about Elon Musk's personal life. You posted, Elon is a modern-day polygamist, a family structure characterized by jealousy and inequality. Musk has never asked to see the baby. This is a quote from a New York Post article about Ashley St. Clair, nor asked for photos of him. St. Clair asked to meet. Okay, Elon Musk responded, well, I do have a legion of kids to make. Katy, flesh out this point about that essentially becoming modern day polygamy, and then we can get into how much it actually matters. But what do you mean by that?
Well, it struck me actually a couple of weeks ago when I had just finished my 30-day shred, which is reading the entire Bible in 30 days.
Oh my gosh.
And obviously, you can't get the granular aspects of scripture in that time frame, but you get the meta points. And there's an awful lot in the Old Testament, especially about polygamy. And sometimes this is used sort of as a dig against Christianity. Oh, you guys, you're against polygamy now, but you weren't then. But the reality is that scripture never sanitized the fallout of the polygamous homes, especially the patriarchs in the Old Testament. Rather, we see the natural result of having more than one wife and children that are now fighting for attention and resources from their father. And you never see any of these homes characterized by equity and stability and love. And then it struck me that Jacob had 13 children that are named, and we are now at a point where Elon Musk has 13 children by 4 different women. Jacob had children by 4 different women as well. And those relationships among the wives, among the children, they were not characterized by equity. It was always jealousy. It was always infighting. And I mean, I think that, the fact that Ashley chose to post this the day, revealed that she is the mother of Elon's 13th child, while he was with Siobhan Zillis and their twins meeting with Indian Prime Minister. Like, obviously, this was I'm going to dig at him because I want his attention kind of thing. So polygamy, some people objected to that. Like, polygamy requires a marriage, girl. I don't know what you're talking about. He's not married. And I'm like, well, that's true. That's why it's modern day polygamy. It still has all of the same hallmarks, all of the same advantages to the men and the women that polygamy has historically provided. Obviously, as a children's rights activist, I'm going to point out that it is the child who suffers, whether you're talking about Old Testament times or modern day Elon Musk. I am going to spread my seed everywhere. Obviously using reproductive technologies as an aid to do that in whatever way I can. So in my opinion, these are always bad for the child, but I can see that this is sort of a manifestation of some of the ancient motivations that have made polygamy part of a variety of different cultures throughout, our history and history of the world.
And the question about how much this matters is interesting because I'm curious if you see this. I mean, you watch these trends very closely. I'm curious if you see this as something that could normalize a trend that's maybe lurking under the surface society-wide. Does this matter? Is there a danger in normalizing something, or is this just a total anomaly?
Okay, so there's always a danger in normalizing any kind of polygamy or polyamory from the child's perspective. Okay, so let me first speak about how this harms children. We actually have quite a bit of data on what happens when unrelated adults share living spaces with children, less so in terms of an officially polygamous relationship, more so in the sense of like step families or cohabiting relationships. And what happens when either unrelated men or unrelated women are sharing living spaces with kids, which is always going to be the case in a polygamous or polyamorous situation.
And I believe in his case, by the way, they have a compound in Texas, right, where some of them are actually reportedly sharing, like you said, a property.
Yeah, so it's very interesting. There was a study that was done called the Puzzle of Monogamy, the Puzzle of Monogamous Marriage back in 2012. 3 different researchers they evaluated the risks to children in these arrangements where there is specifically more than one mother, because the understanding, like I talk a lot about the risks of unrelated men sharing living spaces with children, and I often challenge people to Google the words mother's boyfriend just to validate, hey, just because someone's in a romantic relationship with your parent, that does not mean that they are going to treat you as if you are a child that was born to them. Statistically, an unrelated man who is cohabiting with a child left to care for them alone is the most dangerous person in a child's life. But the risk of unrelated women, especially in a polygamous situation, is also risky for children. Stepmothers are 2.4 times more likely to kill children than their own biological mothers. We know from other studies that stepmothers tend to buckle the seatbelts less of their unrelated children, take them to fewer doctor's appointments, spend 5% less money on their food than a child's own biological mother. So it's just, you could say it is sort of an adaptation on behalf of an evolutionary biology perspective that you want to invest in your own offspring, or you can say, look, I'm jealous. And I don't necessarily want to provide the same level of care and attention for this child because I'm fighting for the attention of the father that supposedly all of these children are sharing. So there's always risks to kids. There certainly was, in ancient times, but in modern day times too, it is not the situation where there's more love to go around and now there's just more adults sharing caregiving duties. Even if the mother or the father is not directly responsible, the stepmother, stepfather, directly responsible for the child's mistreatment, children living with unrelated adults are 15 to 77 times more likely to die accidentally. So even if there isn't direct abuse or neglect or mistreatment, simply the inattention can lead to higher rates of accidental death. So this is not something that should be normalized. This is not something that should be accepted if you're looking at it from the perspective of the best interest of the child, the well-being of the child, and the rights of the child. Polygamous, polyamorous relationships have got to be rejected.
And we have seen sometimes on the left this idea that polyamory should be normalized creep into, in some cases, legal pushes, in some cases, intellectual circles. So is there a risk of Musk kind of inadvertently, giving ammunition to like what he would maybe describe as like purple-haired weirdos who do want to push something like this?
Well, I don't even know if it's purple-haired weirdos. Obviously, this is the next domino to fall in the upheaval, the overturning, and the upending of the norms of marriage. Marriage, which historically has been the most child-friendly institution the world has ever known, because it unites the two people to whom children have a natural right, their mother and father, for life. And those two adults advantage children in terms of love, investment, connection, and protection, advantages them in terms of identity formation, advantages children in terms of their own development with that masculine and feminine input in their development every day. And so marriage was the place where these two adults came together permanently in one home for life. No-fault divorce removed the permanence aspect. Same-sex marriage removed the mother-father aspect. And now we've got polygamy on the horizon, trying to normalize or deconstruct or remove the expectation of monogamy, just one man and just one woman, just two people in the relationship. This is not necessarily the purple hair activist, even though obviously Portland is, just south of me, is a major hub of polyamorous relationships and connections. And that certainly is an attribute of that community. But this has been pushed by, the resurgence of different, for example, Mormon sects that want to have their relationships and household officially recognized by the government. So yeah, obviously this is the next domino to fall. If marriage is no longer about the rights and well-being of children, if it is not, as Congress noted when they passed the DOMA in 1993, that government's interest in marriage is because they have an interest in children. If children are no longer central to this, then there's no reason to adhere to either the permanence of marriage, the complementarity of marriage, or the monogamous aspect of marriage. And maybe Musk, especially with his sort of instinctually correct pro-natalist tendencies, might legitimize that in some way.
And you and I are obviously probably more familiar than most with evangelical circles and the way that, people have developed this reflex when it comes to Donald Trump, to say he gets compared to David a lot or Cyrus. They see him as this biblical figure whose character is imperfect, but is a vessel for God's plan. And many such cases throughout the Bible, throughout history, certainly. I wonder if you think there's reason to extend that maybe to Elon Musk. Is that the lens through which Elon Musk should be viewed by Christians? Or is there something deeply problematic in both cases, or maybe particularly in Musk's case, about this man with enormous power? I mean, maybe the most powerful mortal who's ever walked the face of the earth, if you combine all of his business interests and his money, and now the fact that he is a key advisor to the President of the United States, having this really problematic approach to his own children, to his own marriages over the course of a couple decades now. Does this matter to how he's acting professionally?
I wrote a piece at World Magazine just last week called "The Cost of Conservative Hypocrisy." And it was how we tend to highly critique, the blight of single motherhood in this nation, or talk about the importance of mothers and fathers, or, downgrade, shame, decry hookup culture until somebody in our own camp does it. I mean, we will go have an absolute conniption, for example, over Pete Buttigieg in the hospital bed with the 2 babies. And yet there's all kinds of waves of congratulations from prominent conservative platforms when Dave Rubin shares a, ultrasound picture of his intentionally motherless surrogate children. And honestly, we saw the same thing last week with Ashley St. Clair when she revealed that she was the mother of Elon's 13th child. It was nothing but waves and waves and waves of congratulations from very prominent conservatives. And yet, last week when we saw, I'm sorry, is it Lily Collins, who is the woman who is...
Oh, Phillips. Mm-hmm.
Lily Phillips, prostituting herself on camera for 1,000 men in 24 hours when she had that 48 hours where she sort of faked a pregnancy. There wasn't any congratulations on behalf of conservatives at that point. And so I really think that conservatives, and specifically Christians, need to be very clear. And that is, we can recognize that some people are elevated to certain positions or offices or have something important that they can share or offer. For example, I am a big fan of Doge and what Doge is doing. And I'm expose the rot, defund, all of the condoms being sent to Hamas. I love it. Give me more of that. But just because we like someone or they are on our side does not mean that we are silent about or that we encourage or celebrate the moral decay that they are displaying in their own life. That actually is death, I think, for the next generation who is ripe to be evangelized and discipled, not just in Christianity, but in a conservative worldview, which is much more closely tethered to reality, specifically biological reality. And I think this next generation, Gen Z, is largely rejecting woke ideology because it has been so disconnected from especially the moral tenets that conservatism and Christianity has preserved and held on to for decades, for centuries. And so we need to be careful not to cross streams here. We can recognize the good that President Trump and Elon Musk are doing in their professional life, and don't ever blur the lines between saying, and that means that we can condone or even be quiet about the terrible moral decisions that they're making and the harm specifically to children that are going to result.
And Musk is obviously extremely powerful, as we're just talking about, meaning he has access and has had access to for a long time to what's still fairly expensive technology between IVF and surrogacy, which we know that he's used, and also has said that this is explicitly sort of an attempt to address the population stagnation crisis as he sees it in the West, as many see it in the West. And I wonder, we were talking about this when it came to polygamy and polyamory and the dangers of potentially normalizing that. Are we seeing in Musk potentially a preview of the future of this almost Nietzschean approach to repopulating the West from powerful men as these technologies become more and more accessible to people who aren't multi-billionaires like Elon Musk? Is there a worry in that, Katy?
Well, reproductive technologies are a concern for everybody, not just the uber wealthy, but obviously it is the, we always talk about how all of these celebrities, $1 million celebrities, they're not going to be anybody's surrogate. They're going to get the housekeeper to be the surrogate. And so there absolutely is an economic power dynamic going on in reproductive technologies. In terms of normalizing this, I don't know if we need Elon Musk to do it. I mean, honestly, we have a Trump executive order from last week that is seeking to, make IVF access more affordable and widespread. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of moral confusion around reproductive technologies, especially the cost to children, the fact that IVF, for example, probably destroys 4 times the number of little lives every year than Planned Parenthood it does, that anywhere from a third to two-thirds, by our best estimate, of those children who are making it through the IVF process alive will lose a relationship with their mother or father. Many of these children are going to feel, because we have recorded their stories, commodified, like they are part of a eugenics process. And to be quite frank, that is the reason why Elon has said that he prefers to use IVF, because he wants some kind of say in selecting the genetic stock of the next generation. As far as I know, Ashley is the only baby that was not born through IVF or reproductive technologies. So he sleeps with the mothers of his children, but he doesn't prefer to actually make the babies that way. Does he has the status, he has the money to do this on a widespread level, but there are all kinds of efforts to make this technology more accessible to people who don't have, a six-figure income.
Well, which is interesting because it also is this strange tension between, I mean, it's really beautiful to see him with his young son in the Oval Office. And I have to imagine for you, somebody who's an advocate for kids and spends their whole life on that, like, it is so cool to see a dad making his fatherhood part of his professional life. On the other hand, you could clearly see Grimes is uncomfortable with it. The mother of the child is uncomfortable with it. You could see a case in which it's an sort of oligarchical manipulation of the public. You could make the case that that's what's happening, using his child to manipulate public opinion. But on the other hand, it is so cute and so beautiful, and I hope it is helping young men say that I want to be a father. So it's sort of complicated, and I'm curious how you grapple with that, Katy.
Well, I actually look at that, obviously, that the child, Grimes's son, known as X, because I can't pronounce his official name.
Yes.
But he is the baby. He is the child that is seen in public. Very rarely do you see Elon Musk with any of his other children. So I actually look at this is a classic example of there's favoritism within polygamous homes. And it's very clear that this child is the favorite. Now, I love that he is showing that, kids are welcome in these spaces and that they're not a hindrance to the best work. They are the best work that we have in our lives. I'm just like, but what about the other 12? Where's the other 12 that also deserve to have that level of connection, that level of, association and time spent with their father as this one? And you can't. When you've got 4 different wives and in essence 4 different households, you're not able to give them all the same amount of attention. And I think that there is some aspect of mother's access to the dad will give their child access to the dad. That actually is the whole purpose of marriage, is mothers are distinctly, biologically, chemically, and nurturing, in a nurturing sense, wired to their children, especially in the first couple years of life. The question is, how do you give that same kind of connection to the father who doesn't have the same level of biological connectivity to the child? And the answer throughout all of history has been connect the father to the mother, and you connect the father to the child. So without that same level of public and even-handed commitment to all of the women, right? He has to play favorites. He has to pick which kid is going to have the most association and connection with him. I prefer J.D. Vance's system of welcoming children and allowing his children to be public, because he's married to one woman and has a relationship only with the mother of all of his children. He doesn't have to pick and choose. All 3 of his children get to go to Paris. All 3 of his children are at the inauguration. That's actually the way to do it that allows for the most equity and equality among the kids. So yes, more of fathers being connected to their children, more of that happening in public, especially because we have a whole cadre of leaders throughout Europe that are childless. And so I want the young fathers, I want the young families to be a little more public, but just because there's one kid parading around with Elon Musk, it just makes me mourn for the other 12.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point, because you never obviously see Grimes with Elon Musk. And it's so beautiful to see the Vance family, traveling together, and to see the kids with a mom that is tending to them. So I wonder, Katy, as Elon Musk is overseeing Doge, to the point that you just mentioned, are there, it gives me a lot of pause just personally with the way that we've seen Ashley St. Clair and Grimes recently in the last couple of weeks reaching out to him publicly via X, saying they haven't gotten in touch with him, etc. It just gives me pause about what could be happening in this process. And like you, I like Doge in theory, but I have concerns about how a man who treats the mother of his own children and his own children in this way, ostensibly at least, will be handling the federal government, will be handing government workers who are humans with equal dignity, and as silly as many of their jobs may be, I guess I have concerns about that, and I'm wondering if you do as well. If you think it's fair to extend that.
I'm probably not the right person to comment on that, just because I feel like I still have a lot to learn about what is actually going on, what he's actually doing. I don't necessarily think that he's looking into, as far as I can tell, the detailed personal information of
That makes
individuals,
sense.
but he's looking at systems and things like that. What is it that he and all polygamists throughout history have gained? And it is a display of wealth, prestige, and increased progeny. I mean, those are typically the three motivations for historical polygamists. And I think you can very clearly see through his own admission that those are three motivating factors for Musk. And so I don't necessarily think that there's a conflict between that motivation of having children with four different women and the kind of display of wealth. I mean, in that he's like, I don't even have to be paid to do this, right? I'm not doing this I'm so wealthy, I don't have to be paid. Prestige of being able to lead an effort like this that's never been seen before, and that clearly has so much power to enact not slow, but immediate change. I just think that, the display of his children, and sort of the display of his power goes hand in hand. So I don't know if they're in conflict. I think that they might be symptoms of the same thing. I just think we need to be very, very careful to recognize Musk has something to offer the world in terms of innovation, in terms of understanding how to run companies or governments efficiently. But he is not anybody that we should pattern ourselves after or exalt in his personal life. And, one of many examples, I am sure, throughout history, but even today, we, especially for conservatives and Christians, need to be very clear, hopefully give our children examples of that kind of morality right in our home, so that they don't have to look at Musk. They don't have to look at Andrew Tate. They don't have to look anywhere beyond their own father to understand this is a good man. This is what, genuine investment and connection and protection of a wife. Oh my God.
That was perfect. Perfect timing.
There you go. Celebrations for everybody. We celebrate, the fathers who have committed to one woman for life and who statistically are therefore going to raise children who are going to flourish because they are feasting upon mother's love, father's love, and stability, which are the three staples of a child's social emotional diet.
And so Musk is exceptional in many ways, but in one way kind of feels representative in that he's talked about how his own experience with a child grappling with gender identity opened up his eyes to some of the excesses of the left. And in that, it seems as though he's still, I don't mean to say this in condescending way, he's probably much higher IQ than I am, but it seems as though it's still like you're not fully completing the logic. You're not fully extending the logic. Like you have an issue with it here, but maybe it's like why I think Tom Holland's book Dominion was so powerful for so many people, apparently including Tom Holland, and to helping people to just sort of see if there's this kernel of truth that you believe in and that you can see is factual. You kind of have to go all the way with it. And I guess there's something really interesting to me about him being so moved by that personal experience and yet still procreating without marriage, outside of the structure of marriage, and in ways where he's not going to be involved in the sort of daily oversight of the child, hasn't seen the child, or whatever, it took a long time to see the child, whatever the circumstances there. That to me is really interesting, that he's out here advocating against the quote woke left, as he puts it, political correctness, gender identity, and all of these things, and yet on the other hand, it hasn't quite gone all the way.
Mm-hmm. I really mourn for him. I know that, the transition from his son Xavier to, now he calls himself Vivian, I believe, was really painful for him. He admitted that in the Jordan Peterson interview back in 2024, where he felt like he lost his son. I think that it's possible that, one of the reasons why people struggle with gender dysphoria or take on, a different identity is an insecurity in their own masculinity or femininity. It is very hard to form a sense of your own masculinity or femininity and to love it if you do not have a high level of connectedness with your same-sex parent. Like that, we are not gifted a parent of both sexes in our home by accident. One of those is going to show us who we're supposed to be when we grow up. Girls should be able to look at their mothers and say, that's where I'm headed. And womanhood is going to be awesome, because they've got a woman in their home who is showing them who they're going to be in the future and a very positive vision of it. Boys need a man in their life, a man loving them and giving them that male attention, in essence saying, your boyhood is awesome, you are like me, and you are on your way to masculinity and to manhood, and it's going to be great. I wonder if one of the reasons why Xavier struggled with that gender confusion is because he was disconnected from his father. His father was busy with other women, with other projects. I'm not saying that it is a 100%, connection, but I think that the father absence and the father hunger that Xavier likely experienced might have led him to the place where he said, I don't even know how I feel about being a boy because my own father is not dialed in and connected to me. And now here he is, in essence, creating the same kind of households where his other children will also be starved of a full connection with their father. So he recognizes that the transition of his son was difficult, painful, awful, and obviously fueled by the woke mind virus. But I don't think that he recognizes that his own inattentiveness or lack of connectedness might have contributed to that. And now I wonder if, his other children are going to be susceptible to some of those same kind of identity struggles, because kids aren't made to just know the identity of their dad or receive, a fat paycheck every month. They're made to be loved by him every day, nurtured by him every day, wrestled with him every day, taken with him on work trips, all, have the same access to him when he's working. And he's not allowing that for all of his kids. So I don't think it's going to bode well for them, unfortunately. They'll never have to worry about money. But that's not actually what kids care about. They care about being known and loved by the two people responsible for their existence.
Katy, these conversations are so difficult to have in the culture that we live in, and you make it look easy because you're so knowledgeable and so brave. And I just appreciate your time and your willingness to talk through all of this, because it is actually, even as someone on the right, it's hard to make sense of this tornado that is happening in the culture. So I appreciate your time a lot.
Thank you. And the reason why this is not easy, but it's simple, is because when you actually look at things through the lens of what is best for children, you get an awful lot of clarity about everything, from marriage to polygamy to reproductive technologies to, this presence of unrelated adults in the home. We don't have to look at and condemn adults or say we're against this group or that group. We simply say, what is best for children? They should come first. And I will tell you that will clarify and crystallize a lot of the different positions and obviously a lot of the ways that we interact with these different figures. And that's really what we should all be doing. I mean, honestly, if we have a stake, not just in the individual child, but in our nation as a whole, as civilizational thriving, we have to get back to the place where we put them before us, where we put kids before adults, instead of letting whatever political alignment sway us, or even our own personal relationships, our personal feelings, the people in our lives who might be, living in a way that is incongruent with these traditional teachings of conservatism and Christianity. If you put kids first, you're going to get the right political decisions and the right personal decisions 100% of the time.
I could keep going on this for hours. So, Katy, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Undercurrents. I really find Katy's clear thinking to be helpful. I obviously have said this a couple of times. We're hard on Elon on this show. I think that's the role of journalists. We had James Fishback on here to talk about Doge dividends and actually some of the benefits that Doge could be creating here in DC. I don't deny any of that. But again, as someone in the media, as someone in journalism, I also think it's important to be skeptical of people in positions of power, whether they're on the left or whether they're on the right. Again, it's dominating headlines, and that doesn't mean it's important. Often things that dominate headlines are not important. So in this case, I thought it would be interesting to have Katy make the case that it is or isn't important, and I think I side with her. I think it is important, but can also be sort of separated from his political work, at least for now, until we see otherwise. But the marriage of sort of his political shift, or not the marriage, but the sort of cause and effect of what's happened in the culture and then how he's reacted politically is very, very interesting. So stay tuned for more coverage from Undercurrents. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope you subscribe on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts, and at undercurrents.tv for the full premium experience. We'll be back here with more soon.